Josh Hennig here on 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea City. AEW, that's right, it's back in Atlantic City this Saturday at Boardwalk Hall. And, of course, joining us is New Jersey's own, the Virtuosa herself, Deonna Purrazzo, here on 97.3 ESPN. Deonna, how you doing today?
Oh, I'm great. How are you?
Doing good. Now, for those who've been following your social media, they know you've been doing a lot of traveling, so it seems like you and Steve have been enjoying yourselves out in nature, right?
Oh my gosh, yes. We just went to Sequoia National Park yesterday, and I can't even believe that that place is real. I kept saying it smells like we're in Avatar, like the ride in Disney. However they've created that scent, that's what the park smelled like. It was incredible. So crazy.
So I have a history question for you because you
Okay.
always do this to Steve where you kind of like, for those who follow you on social media, you kind of half ambush him, but he kind of knows what's coming at this point, right? So
Yeah.
you're going to be in Atlantic City this Saturday.
Yeah.
What wrestling superstar won their first international championship in Atlantic City?
Oh my gosh. Their first championship in Atlantic City. Um Okay, my brain went to like Bruno Sammartino. I feel like that is so incorrect, but I don't know who else it could be. That was the only name that came into my brain.
So you're in kind of like the right range time frame. So
Okay.
WWF World Championship, Macho Man Randy Savage,
Okay.
WrestleMania. It was in Atlantic City when him and Hulk Hogan united and helped Randy win his first championship.
Wow. Okay. Wrestling fans don't come for me. My degree is in like American world history, not wrestling history. But that's cool because I feel like New Jerseyans would take Macho Man on like and claim him as one of our own. So I like that.
And see, now that you know that, you can steal that to use at some point as well now, see?
100% that's going to be coming up soon for the Teaching My Husband History series.
See, I'm a history major too, so I'm full of useless information. So that's why I love this whole teaching history, the Steve series.
Well, thank you. We're gonna need to connect and you're gonna have to give me some harder questions because I swear he's evolving. He's studying for this thing because he is getting the answers right and flipping the script and asking me questions that I'm not prepared to answer. So we need to like meld our minds and stump him.
Yeah, I got tons of useless information for you, which will be useful for this specific situation. So,
Great.
but back to the wrestling. So you've been now with AEW for over a year. For those who don't know the whole story, you made your debut with AEW in New Jersey at the
Yeah.
beginning of 2024. So now, a year plus into it, tell the audience like what has been maybe like the highlight for you. What has been like a moment or a storyline or a situation that kind of made you say like, "Wow, I'm so glad to be here."
Yeah, I feel like when I was about to become a free agent and I spoke to some people at AEW and was just like trying to plan my next steps, I had just seen that the first Dynamite of 2024 was going to be in New Jersey. And I was going to be a free agent at that point. And so I feel like that, like, I've had some great matches and great feuds. I loved what I did with Thunder Rosa last summer, that culminated in like the first ever women's televised Texas Bull Rope match. But I feel like nothing could top debuting in New Jersey with my family in the front row, my husband there, um, the crowd chanting Deonna. Like taking a moment after that, I had realized I've never cut a promo or talked in front of an audience of that size. I've never, like, only just a few times had I wrestled in front of a crowd that size at this point. So it was all just so special for so many reasons. And that's the only thing I wanted. I was like, I don't care what happens after that. If I'm going to come to AEW, that's the debut. That would be perfect for me. And so I was just really, really grateful that we got to make that happen.
You talked about the fan response, the fans chanting your name. For those who never experienced that, can you give folks like an idea of like what that moment, like in the moment, was like?
Yeah.
Because it's like someone like you hear a conversation or an interview about like after the fact, but kind of take us in the moment for being someone. I mean, your job literally is entertainment. Your job literally is to be the best version of yourself night in and night out for the people in the crowd, and to hear them chanting your name like that is like what in that moment?
Crazy. I think for me in that moment too, the crowd, I don't know that they necessarily expected it to be me. There was, rumors floating around about other free agents and other women who, would eventually make it into the company, Mercedes Monet. But I don't know that anyone necessarily expected it wholeheartedly to be me. So there was this anxious feeling before, and also like just on a personal note, like not a lot of things in life make me cry and make me very emotional, but wrestling always does. And I think it's this like innate thing that like I only ever wanted to be a wrestler, and now I'm getting to do it. And I'm just so incredibly grateful for that. And so like literally I was in tears behind the curtain, like waiting for my music to hit, go out, hysterical crying. Madison Rain, who's my best friend, was looking at me like, what's wrong? And I was like, I don't know. And so then to walk out and then hear that response, and people were genuinely so excited, so surprised it was me. And then yeah, they're chanting my name, like, 7,000 people are chanting my name, and my dad is in the front row, and he gets to experience that with me. It was just crazy surreal, but was like it was everything I had hoped it would be. And a lot of times we don't get that. It doesn't. It doesn't amount to what we want it to be in our brain, right? And so for it to, I don't think could ever be duplicated in my career.
That's awesome. We're talking with New Jersey's own Deonna Purrazzo, of course, the Virtuosa, joining us here on 97.3 ESPN. By the way, do I have to pay you every time I say that now? Because I saw you got that trademarked.
Yes, you do. It's officially trademarked. It's mine.
Congratulations on that, by the way.
Thank you.
We can maybe me giving you more history ideas, like my payment for saying the Virtuosa. How about that?
I think that's fair. I'll take that. Yeah.
All right. All right. See, barter system. We got this all figured out here. So, but in Atlantic City this Saturday, AEW Boardwalk Hall. And, it's, to me, it's wild that AEW, we're getting them into Atlantic City because of the history of pro wrestling that has been in Atlantic City. But part of the history is also yours as well, because your journey has been absolutely incredible. And, I was watching a couple months ago your interview with Chris Van Vliet, and you talked about how you are so much of a different woman today than you were 14 years ago, 15 years ago when you first got into this.
Yeah.
And and no offense to Chris, he's great at what he does, but my follow-up question when you said that he didn't ask you, so I'm going to ask you here, which is I want to know, what is for you the biggest difference between that woman 15 years ago and the woman now? Because obviously there are certain things, right? Maturity, life experience, perspective. But what is something, aside from the obvious, that you say, oh my gosh, like now that I'm here now, that is such a huge difference for me, Deonna?
I think the biggest difference, and this isn't always the most popular answer, is that I have other interests now. I have other hobbies now. And like I said earlier, like at 9 years old, I told my parents I'm going to be a professional wrestler. And I worked my entire life to get that moment to, have my first match, to, make an entrance to a ring one day. And nothing else interests me. My friends would be like, oh, we're going to do this, this, this. And I'm like, hey, Monday Night Raw is on Mondays, can't do that. Friday Night SmackDown is on Friday, can't go to the party. So I just tailored my whole life to becoming a professional wrestler. And I think it was about 2020, the pandemic happened. I'd just been released of my contract at NXT. And I just had this moment of like, if this is all that I worked for and I didn't love it as much as I thought I did. And at that point, the wrestling landscape had changed as well. AEW was just forming, and we were just seeing it in its first year. And I just wasn't sure where I fit into the entire wrestling world anymore, and if I even wanted to fit into it. And so now, I have a bachelor's degree in history. I'm working on my master's degree in political science. I'm married, you know what I mean? Like I have 3 dogs. I have a amazing life outside of wrestling that keeps me balanced. And so not 100% of every effort that I give to everything that I do is about professional wrestling. It's an even 50-50 balance where I can turn it off and only give 100% when I'm at work or when I'm watching Dynamite or when I'm in the ring training for an upcoming match or something like that. I think that balance is what's made me a way better woman, a way better partner, a way better wrestler, is just being able to say, like, this is wrestling and this is my other interests, because I never had that before.
That's actually a perfect answer, because I literally just interviewed Jim Murphy, the guy who wrote the book Inner Excellence, this week. And one of the things the book talks about is being able to see beyond just your goals, just see beyond just what you want to be. We're talking with the virtuosa herself, Deonna Purrazzo, AEW this Saturday at Boardwalk Hall in Atlantic City. When you just mentioned something was interesting, which is talking about how, like, hey, I used to all this time, right, for just to watch wrestling, and then I said all the time to be a wrestler, right? And I think that was interesting in that conversation is you're also describing the evolution of women's wrestling, because of the fact that, women's wrestling was kind of like this weird niche years ago. And now it's to the point where I was making the argument here on 97.3 ESPN that I thought the best match at WrestleMania was the three-way match between Bianca Belair, Rhea Ripley, and Io Sky, where it was like, you could argue that was one of the best three ways I've ever seen in terms of execution and athleticism, and like the crowd knew it as well. Like, you could hear the crowd 100% engaged, and you talking about how, you hear people chanting your name as you're walking out for the first time at AEW, and it's like, to me, that is a part of this whole thing, is that you are in the midst of this evolution, not just of the sport and in the landscape, but also in women's wrestling as well.
Oh yeah, and I think that that's also happening at AEW right now. And I think that there was a very, very strong case for at Revolution for Toni Storm and Mariah May to be the main event of the pay-per-view. And unfortunately they weren't, but I think that our women's division is grown so much in the last year and a half, 2 years. And we're seeing more women weekly on our television shows, but also then too, yes, it's like eventually women are going to warrant that spot and you're not going to be able to deny it. And so I think that it's incredible to be in a division that is growing like that and to see that happening for the women around me. I was so fortunate to be able to be a part of that evolution, specifically women main eventing a pay-per-view when I was at TNA, and got to be a part of the first ever Knockouts World Championship pay-per-view match. And so to know that that's coming up and to feel that excitement and that maturity in a extremely new, comparatively, women's division in AEW, it's only just about 6 years old, is such an exciting time for me, and I know our entire division feels that too.
All right, a couple more before I let you go. I want to know for you, who has been the person at AEW that what afterward you were like, oh bleep, I can't believe I just got to like do whatever with that person, like hang out with them, talk to them, bounce ideas off of them. Like, who was someone that you were like you picked up the phone to Steve and you were like, Steve, what the bleep? Like, I gotta tell you this.
Yeah, for me, that person's Dean Malenko. If you know me as a wrestler, I'm a technician. My finisher is, a double Fujiwara armbar, and everything I do goes back to that Fujiwara armbar. And so to be able to meet Dean for the first time, it took me months to like work up the nerve to even introduce myself and say hello. And so now it's so funny you say that. Over the weekend, I was doing a convention, and Dean was across the hall from me. And he was like, Deonna! And I went over and I said hello, and he gave me a hug, and I said hello to his wife. And I texted Steve, and I was like, Dean and I are friends, and this is crazy. So for me, yeah, it's Dean Malenko, because his matches were my favorite. To watch him and Eddie Guerrero and Chris Jericho and the magic that they made, all over the globe are some of my favorite matches to go back and watch and study and be inspired again by. So to know that I have him that I can just like BS with, but then also, bounce wrestling questions off of is incredible. It's crazy.
By the way, Chris Jericho also in AEW, which will be in Atlantic City this Saturday at Boardwalk Hall. And before I let you go, and I appreciate your time today, this Saturday in Atlantic City. What is the Virtuosa looking forward to the most when she is at Boardwalk Hall in Atlantic City?
You know what? At first I was gonna make it wrestling related, but you know what I'm most excited about? Going home and eating like New Jersey food.
Yes, thank you.
I'm so excited to see what happens on Collision. I'm so excited for more to be announced. Looking forward to the end of the week. But as a New Jerseyan who lives in Orlando, Florida, we don't have good pizza. We don't have good bread. We don't have
Yes.
good bagels. We don't have good like cold cuts and things like that. So my first stop is going to be like maybe a good slice of pizza.
Oh, listen, I got you on the pizza. I'll let you know where to get the good pizza. I literally have this conversation with my buddy. I have a buddy of mine who owns one of the pizza places down here. We were literally just having this conversation where it's like the bread is not the same in the South. They don't have the right ingredients in the South for pizza. Like, we literally were just having this conversation the other day. That's why I was like, I can't believe you just said that. Because me and my buddy Nick, because my buddy Nick is so meticulous about how he makes his pizza. So it's like one of those deals where it's like, it's so true. Like, you can't go everywhere else in the country and get the same quality of what in your mind you know what it should taste like. And then you're tasting it and you're like, this isn't pizza.
No, I'm in California right now, and Steve and I ordered like some kind of like spinach something ravioli the other night at dinner, and it came, and I ate the sauce, the gravy, and I was like, ooh. I also, being New Jersey and being Italian, like I could just cook it better myself. So I made
Probably.
my first mistake was ordering it somewhere else. And so yeah, I need to go home. I need to eat the food and just like get my fix, and then I could go back to Orlando, which really is my home, and be okay for a few months.
And again, nothing wrong with Orlando. I like Florida personally, but I'm just saying, the pizza and the bread is better in New Jersey. That's all I'm saying.
100% hands down. Like I would die on that fact.
Yeah, this is why we're getting along here. We agree on history, we agree on food, and of course, she is the virtuosa Deonna Purrazzo. This Saturday, AEW Boardwalk Hall in Atlantic City. Get your tickets now. You don't want to miss out on such a great show that AEW puts on. Deonna, I appreciate you jumping on the conversation. We look forward to seeing you Saturday night in Atlantic City.
Thank you so much for having me.